げんびサポーターのオンライントークで、今回はフェデリコ・エレーロさんをオンラインでつないでお招きしています。皆さんもうご存知だと思うんですけど、簡単なフェデリコさんのご紹介をさせていただくと、1978年生まれ、コスタリカのサンノゼで、サンノゼの生まれですね。で、フェデリコさんはベリタスユニバーシティ、コスタリカのベリタスユニバーシティで建築を学ばれた後、アメリカ・ニューヨークのフラットインスティテュートで絵画を学ばれています。で、フェデリコさんのすごく大きな功績としては、2001年のベネチア・ビエンナーレで特別新人賞を受賞されていて、その後にキューバとかコロンビア、ブラジル、アメリカのサンフランシスコとか、本当に、世界各地さまざまな場所で展覧会を開催されて作品を発表されています。で、今日はまず十和田の、ウォールペインティングとミラーについてちょっとその当時のエピソードとかをご説明していただいた後に、これまでの作品をいろいろとご紹介していただいて、その中でそうですね、十和田にある作品との共通点だったりとか、彼の作品のジェネラルな、こう特徴とかアプローチの方法っていうのを、こう観察というかみんなで探っていけたらいいなと思います。はい、では、フェデリコさんお願いします。
Thank you so much. So thank you for the invitation to this talk for the museum. I am currently talking from my home place in the city of San Jose in Costa Rica. So I was invited first to visit the museum and the site, and then came back on 2007 to spend about a month in Towada. So during that period, I produced the work and I also had the experience to live in the city. It was for me a nice time, so I was able to enjoy the time there without rushing the process, and gave me a nice feeling of the time in Towada. So my work is very open for interpretation. It's meant to be like a common place, and the access to this place is given through the senses. And sometimes it happens through movement and perception, and it's a painting that unfolds in the space. So it's somehow connected to the idea of time as well. And my work is not so interested in concepts or ideas that might create, but rather in having an experience of clarity. So it's much more based on experience, right? Well, I have done works such as the one in Towada in many different cities. So I have been able and very lucky to meet many people from many different cultures. And of course, this has been very positive for me. So for me, Japanese culture has always been one of my favorites. Because of the big sensibility of the Japanese people, it's absolutely deep and beautiful. My first visit to Japan was in 2002 to the city of Yamagata, and I did a design for a city bus commissioned by the prefecture. And I have such beautiful memories of this trip. Everything was so new and so different for me. And the second time was invited by AIT, it's Artist Initiative Tokyo, and I had a residency in the city of Tokyo. So this time the experience was completely new, but in the city. So it was also very rich time for me in that sense. So today the work I would like to talk first about this work at Towada, and it's from the year 2008. And I would like to talk about the meaning and also about the idea behind the work, but also the process to make it and the time I spent in Japan doing this site painting. So I use the word site-specific to describe the work, but sometimes the word mural can be used to categorize the work. So you will see there are a lot of connections with the space itself, and this might be the main differentiation. For example, murals normally are more meant to express a message, an idea, or some kind of propaganda. But I am not so interested in that. Instead, I like to think that the space has certain elements that connect more through sensorial intelligence and not through reasoning. The work takes place in the liminal space of the stairway to the rooftop of the museum. And by liminal, I mean it's a zone of transition. It's like an in-between zone and requires a movement to go through it. So it ends at the rooftop with a floor painting with elements that resemble eyes gazing at the sky. When you're going up to the stairs, you can notice elements that gather in shapes and they have strong colors, and the combination of both form and colors create tension between them. My intention is that there is a complete open structure and that the viewer can then interpret according to their experience. And this can be seen as some kind of vocabulary because forms and color might repeat, creating rhythm and poetry in the space. So those elements you can see in this image, for example, it's almost like an eyes is looking back at you. It's like this having a capacity to gaze back at you. So now I'd like to talk about the process. So the most particular aspect of how I work is that there is not a previous sketch or a master plan to follow. So instead, it starts with my physical presence in the space. And I start tracing forms and color in certain areas. And then this triggers a continuation where the element starts to add. As the work continues to grow, there are notions of compositions and balance. It resembles like a notion of musicality in general. I tend to think of the spaces as music boxes waiting to be opened. This is about Towada. Now I would like to talk about some works that have been very important to me, and they give me clues of how to develop my ideas, both in terms of the notions of space and also in the institutional world. Because some of my process requires some agreement with the institution to be made. So this one is very important. We're going to talk about this first, and it's from the Venice Biennial in 2001. And at that time, I was very young, I was 22 years old, beginning my career, and I was invited by Harald Seman, who was the main curator, to participate. So Harald Seman had visited Costa Rica in the 2000 and to do research about artists from Central America for the Biennale. And this is where he saw my work and he invited me to participate. So the painting was done in an area that had no access. You can only see this from the distance. And I used for the first time the method to work without a sketch or a plan. So I approached the wall from zero conception, and then the wall started to guide me into the rest. So you see the work resembles like a ready-made in the wall. And you can see there's a little bit of a resemblance of a landscape in the work. It was a very important point for my life, and it allowed me to start working with people outside of Costa Rica. So it was a very important moment where I could connect with the international world, and it provided me a turning point in my life. So this is why it's nice to say it, yeah. So one very nice thing is that after this, I was able to not necessarily move from Costa Rica to a very big city, but instead I was able to choose and stay in my home place and travel abroad to come back. So it was a very positive context for me for producing my work. Now, I will talk about a work, but we don't have an image, so it's okay. I can just describe it. So Mapamundo was presented at the Bienal de La Habana in Cuba in the year 2003. A world map was painted on the bottom of the pool, and then we filled the pool again with water. And the children were swimming almost with the notion of flying these maps, like they were free around the world. So the work evoked the political situation of Cuba and the freedom of movement. So this is from landscape for the Bienal de Medellín in Colombia in 2007. So it was at first intended as an ephemeral work, but the city decided to keep it. And the work is located in one of the Medellin's main central park, and there is a huge amount of people that are passing by and waiting for somebody. It's a very centric point. It's a very gray and dirty city landscape in the city of Medellin, at least in that time when I was there. So the work is almost like an insertion of a landscape within another landscape. This is not going to be in the script, but some interesting facts in this work. The work, it was so many people around. It was very beautiful because people would interact with me and they perhaps ask me, can I make some color? Can I make some shapes? And can I make some combination? And it was a very beautiful aspect of the work where people were somehow very connected and engaging in petitions about the work. So this is the work is titled Playground, and it's for the exhibition Under the Same Sun at the South London Gallery in the year 2016. What is particular about this work is it was done in a community where there's a playground in the center, and the people were starting to engage in the process. This time, not like in the Medellin, like they are yelling, but this time they are actually want to paint. So it started to bring together a whole community in the process. In the sense, what is beautiful with this situation is that the neighborhood was having some issues with violence, some difficult time were happening, and the people were scared. So by doing this process, it allowed to people to start to feel okay to go out again. And I think it's something I've spoken about before, the notion of a common place or a common ground. And this is an example about it, where people were feeling safe in this common area, right? Okay, so this is Tempo Aberto, is for the MAC Niteroi, the Museum of Art, MAC Contemporary Art, yeah, the Museum of the City of Niteroi in Rio de Janeiro, and it's done in the year 2019. So the work is done in the museum, and it's very much related to the notion that we spoke before, like having the space as a music box. So it's trying to open up space and create different possibilities within the space. Yes, this is all from the Niteroi. So now I would like to just touch about two references that are very important for me. And the first one is the artist called Helio Oiticica. He's from Brazil. So Oiticica was interesting for me because he was able to bring notions of painting into the three-dimensional space. He was able to link notions of painting and architecture, and the very notion of navigating a painting through the space. It's something I learned from his work, and I think his work for me is very interesting because it deals with some notion of movement as well, and it's something that I apply a lot in my own work. Okay, and this is another reference that is very important for me, is the painter Roberto Mata, and he's from Chile, and he was part of the Surrealist movement 100 years ago. Especially Mata was so important for me because he used to paint in the canvas without a plan or a sketch in the same way. So he would let the images come out. And for me, this became a type of methodology in my work. I also do paintings on canvas myself. So normally I will use the same type of approach while doing the type of work in canvas. And I will do the same type of approach when working in the space with the site-specific works. So in a way, it's about letting things come out, and somehow you try to place yourself as an artist that you can let this happen, right? You are enabler to these things to happen. So yes, I think I would like to start finishing the talk with kind of pointing out what is very important in my work. And one of the aspects has to do with the methodology, with how it's done. So what is very important there is that there needs to be a certain type of presence when you are working to connect with the work, with the space, and be able to produce in this way. So one aspect deals with presence and the capacity to engage in the present time to produce. And the other is the possibility to create like a language that is universal. And I like this possibility because that's what is possible, that an artist from Costa Rica can create a work that is resonating with people in Japan, for example. And I like a lot this possibility of commonplace and common ground. So, for example, when you are in Towada and you are going through the staircase, for me, it's almost my wish is that people can feel as they are going through a musical piece. It's almost the best case scenario when somebody opens up is that the feeling is almost like if you go through a film, right? That you're in different stages and you're passing through a film. And my main hope is that people can experience in this way through this movement. And so, for example, when you are inside the building with the stairs, they can resemble the noises of the daily life, the city and all the sounds and noises and busyness that we have. But when you go in the rooftop, there is some sort of emptiness, or it's like a mirror of the sky. So it's meant to bring you to the opposite, let's say, to have a kind of experience of both a lot of movement and a lot of chaos. But in the rooftop, it's supposed to bring you in a state of calmness and to have a resemblance that is mirroring the sky. So it's kind of similar to your mind, actually. So yes, I wish that you can experience this work in this way. And I'm very grateful for this time. And I'm guessing, do we have a space for questions, or how it's working? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Federico.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。じゃあ、そうですね。今おっしゃってくださったことをまとめると、やっぱりなんかどういった場所がそもそも作品のために、作品を描く場所としてあって、そこをやっぱフェデリコさんが本当に計画せずに割と直感的にどういうふうにこう開いていけるか、彼がミュージックボックスっておっしゃってましたけど、そうですね、その作り方、絵画の描き方っていうのがすごく特徴的で面白いなと思いました。
To say, yeah, intuition is very important in the process, and it's very good. Chieko pointed this out. So it guides the whole procedure, and it's something to be sharp on. Yeah.
たくさんのお話の中で、たびたび登場するキーワードで、そのコモン、その共有する場っていうお話があったことが、すごく個人的にも、興味のあるというか、これから大事になるキーワードだなっていうふうに思っているんですが、結構世界の中で分断が進んでいく中で、アートによってそういう共有する場っていうのをより保っていけるのかなっていうふうに考えていて、なんかこれから先、フェデリコさんが作られるものとかでも、なんていうんですかね、コモンのっていう概念とかコモンプレイスっていうのは引き続き重要になっていくんでしょうか。お願いします。
Yes, for sure. And I agree. I think it's a very important topic, and it's almost like an act of resistance to create a common place, because all technology and preoccupations of contemporary life, it's bringing everybody to division and to have a lot of self-centered position. So I almost think it's resistance. It's a very kind of a political act to resist of this current and to go back to common sense as a humankind. I'm very agree about this, and I hope to continue developing these works like this. So, like say, these forms and this color can seem so innocent, but actually can bring a very strong statement. So that's also important to know.
ありがとうございます、すずめさん。
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
ちょっとなんかそのことに補足して私からも質問したいんですけど、例えばその十和田のウォールペインティングとミラーの作品について、そうですね、おっしゃってたように階段っていうどこかからどこかへ移動する場所にフェデリコさんの作品が、私たち日本、特になんか日本人的な感覚からはすごく鮮やかな、私たちにとって馴染みのない色彩があるっていうことは結構別の意味をそこでまた作っていると思っています。
Maybe it's interesting because I think a lot of the color I use perhaps is connected to many things that I see in Costa Rica. Maybe some forms and some way the light is touching nature, and the way, especially about the way the light brings up forms and colors. So I think many of them are coming from my experience, and I tend to translate them somehow can become a very personal way to rearrange them, right? It's kind of this way.
なんか作品を歩いていると、さっきペテリコさんが、個人的にそのコスタリカで見ている風景だっておっしゃってたんですけど、なんか私ちょっと中南米に行ったことがないんですが、なんかおそらくその都市の、本当に建物とかに存在する鮮やかな色彩っていうのもあると思うんですけど、こう目玉があることによってなんか動物的にも見えてくるんですよね。つまりなんか都市と自然みたいなものが混在しているようにも見えてくるんですけど、なんかその見方は正しいのかどうかっていうのを聞きたいです。
It's very nice because I like the think about the idea that the landscape can become a creature, like a being, and backwards. So I think it's a very good way to describe it. It's something I want to play with. Yeah, very much.
フェデリコさんの作品に対する思いにはまってしまっただろう一人です。で、元幼稚園の先生をしていたので、今の動物のことなんですけれども、見えるっていうところで、私もフェデリコさんの作品大好きで、なぜかというとすごいこう物語を作れるんです、私の中で。じゃあどこからその物語が生まれるかというと、やっぱりこう見ていて動物たちが見えてくるんですね、作品の中に。でその動物たちが私にこうなんか訴えたり話しかけてきたり、そういうものを感じて、つい今これはこのゾウさんに見えるこの子は私にこう言ってるんだろうなとか、これから本当はあそこに行きたいんだよとかって、そういう気持ちがなんか伝わってきて、ついつい自分の頭の中で勝手にこうストーリーを作ってしまう。それが昨日の 作品を見たストーリーで、今日また作品を見たストーリー、その度にちょっと変わるんですけれども、その見るたびに違うという面白さ、それがすごい素敵だなと思って、今さっきの動物に見えるかもって話を聞いてふと思いました。はい。
That's so beautiful. I think she really understands how to access the word. She really gets it. And it's really when I was saying that you can experience the work almost like a movie, like a film. If you are walking through, the things will come up. This is one aspect. And the second aspect is that she has a lot of capacity. Sometimes the people are very sensitive and they can access many things because of them. So she's very special. She's very special to open to things, and I really like her description. I think she understands very well how this works, and I'm very glad to hear about it.
すごい面白い話ありがとうございました。中でも私も冒頭すずめさんおっしゃっていたなんかコモンプレイスっていうのがすごく気になっていて、で特にプレイグラウンドっていう作品の話をよりもうちょっと聞いてみたいなって思ったんですけれど、その暴力とかが結構その街で蔓延していて、こう市民の人たちが外に出るのがすごく怖いっていう状況の中、そのコモンプレイスアートでその場を作ることによってそのみんながまた外に出てみてもいいかなっていう気持ちになれたってことってすごい多分なんかこう平和な日本に住んでいる私だと多分想像つかないくらいなんて言うんでしょう、大きな気持ちの変化なんじゃないかなって思っていて、そのアートに関わっていく過程でどういうふうにその市民の人たちの心境に変化があったか、なんかその過程をもうちょっと詳しく聞いてみたいです。
So yes, it's a good question. I was first, even myself, a little bit preoccupied because when I start to do the work, it was you could feel a bit the tension, tense in the air. And there were many teenagers escaping from the school, and they would come to the park where I was. So they would go escaping from the classes. They would not go to school and stay in the park. At first, they would really make almost like they reject me at first. But as I continue and I kept going through my work, and of course, the very first days were very difficult for me, but I decided to go on. And so by continuing, suddenly they started to be curious about it. And suddenly they asked if they could start to trace one shape and to put the paint. So I think the key factor, the key element was to go on, to continue. And that kind of approach allowed them to activate curiosity. So then through curiosity, they were able to open the door and to engage. So that's how it happened.
階段のスペースがリミナルな場所だっていうのは非常に面白かったんですけれども、場所を選ぶのは、キュレーターとはどのように選ばれたんでしょうか。美術館側からがこの場所で階段と屋上で、作品を作ってくださいっていうふうに言われたのか、それともフェデリコから例えば階段でやりたいというような提案があったのか、そこの場所の選び方についてどうだったのか教えていただけますか。
I think it was long time ago, so I might not remember, but I understand it was an agreement between both of us. I think the curator at the time was proposing to choose to find the right place, but also was proposing that as a possibility. And I think I was attracted to this possibility because it would enhance my concept, right? It's a proper place to put in Notion the concepts that I was working. So I think it was a bit of a common agreement, and I think this is how we come about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
ありが
Thank
とう
you
ござい
so
ま
much.
す。
Nice to see you. Thank you. Yeah, that's wonderful. And this is really what I wish for everybody to do. It's a possibility to understand how to appreciate the work. And this is really, I hope that everybody can access to this way and experience and enjoy the work. Thank you for the translation, Tomoko-san, and